All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I've been having a guy in the comment section, basically, or I've had a couple of comments on this, but on my Mage Guide videos and so forth and so on. But one of the more interesting things that people said that I glossed over, or I basically mentioned in the guides, in the Paladin versus Mage guides specifically, was you will be unkillable, they can't kill you. And I basically just left it at that. More specifically, I think I said, as long as you have your HP breakpoints, they can't kill you, blah, 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 blah. And therefore, this is why the matchup plays out the way that it does. I also said get into your resist suit, out of your resist suit, and certain guys. Basically, if you don't know, I've got this is like part 3, if not part 4. Technically, this is like part 3.5. Holy shit. Of Paladin versus Mage. Paladin versus Mage is the most complicated and dynamic of all the duels, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of movement involved. There's a lot of gear swapping involved. There is a lot of dynamics. It's a very long, very nuanced fight, if that makes any sense. Um, so in the first video, I was basically like, well, if you had to do like a $40,000 tournament and you had to fight a mage, here's the no fun version, kill any mage variant. Like, here's the things that you do to beat mages with almost 100%. As close to 100% probability as we can possibly get as a paladin. It's probably closer to like 80%, 70% chance that we kill them in a 1v1, mostly because mages can do things themselves, and they'll probably watch the guide or one of these videos and be like, I'm gonna try to counter that with this and this with that and yada yada yada, and you just could go down that spiraling rabbit hole of, if they X then I Y, if they Y then I blah 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 blah, that Jakova hates into oblivion. Okay, but that was first video. And then second video I came out, I talked about like my Holy Reckoning build, which has like a 1 in 4 chance to kill a mage in a wreck bomb. It's got like 190 fire resistance. And it can gear swap, but it doesn't really gear swap, blah, 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 blah. And I talked about like, what life looks like more realistically, as opposed to being like super, super, uber, ridiculously serious. Still wasn't good enough. So I came out with my even better Mage Paladin versus Mage guide, which we talk about, like, which finally brings up, like, how visually, like, how the movement works, why things are the way that they are, like, possibly what you're doing wrong, yada, yada, yada. But in that video, I said that the mage can't kill you, and very, very quickly glossed over that aspect of this. So I get comments in the comment section that basically say, I think you're underestimating, mage, deep, blah, 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 DPS. And I'm like, oh my God. So, we're going to make this video on that subject, which is the horrifying, unflinching look at why a mage cannot kill you in PvP. Okay, like, mathematically, we are going there. We'll also see why the breakpoints are the way they are once again, and that's why I've got my Shaman, Paladin vs. Shaman guide pulled up here, complete with its burst sequence and all that, and how much damage it actually does when they get like the free criticals and yada yada yada. Not a very hard matchup. You can trade bubble for this, survive this no problem, and then they don't have the free crit heals, and then life looks a lot like it does with the mage. So everything I'm about to say for mage works for this. Again, that's why HP breakpoints exist, yada yada yada. Eventually, we will get around to talking about what life looks like if you're wearing, 200 fire resist, which is a 50% damage reduction. What it looks like if you decided to hell with fire resist, go with frost resist, because some people make comments like, I think if you're fighting a frost mage, you're dumb for going fire resist over frost resist. Well, the TLDR on that is all the frost resist gear doesn't actually have combat stats, except but the fire resist gear is attached to things like tier 2 and Onyxia Tooth Pendant and Hand of Rag, items that we can actually beat the crap out of a mage with while having like metric shit tons of fire resist on us. It's also supported by the enchants, right? You're minus 200 HP, but you're plus 40 fire resist. So you're at 70 fire resist just from 2 enchants and Hand of Rag alone. And then tier 2 pumps that up even more, like 5-piece tier 2, and then it just keeps going from there, right? So that's one of the main reasons fire resist. There's other little nuances that we'll get to. So the other little nuance is that, yeah, on paper, frost resistance is better, but when you look at the sequence of events, you don't get to see what the hell this final frostbolt damage is going to be. You're not going to know if it's going to crit or not before you can react. But you can see what the RNG is on these 3 spells before you can react. And you'll notice that 2 of them are fire and 1 of them is frost. Meaning that if this frostbolt crits, very quickly, even if you have frost resistance, right? Very quickly, it doesn't really matter what these fire blasts are going to do because you got no resistance against them. They're just going to do what they do, like 100% of the time. But you're kind of sweating bullets as to whether or not this frostbolt is going to hit and to crit. Mathematically, the final one, it's not very likely, but you're still taking a risk. You're taking like a 15% chance risk at a 30% spell crit with the mage that you just die. So when you're in 50% frost resistance gear, the sheer act of the first frostbolt critting you means that you either need to use a defensive trinket, a whipperroot tuber, or something like this, or just pucker your butt and roll the dice and risk this final frostbolt hitting you, getting through your 50% resistance, and critting you. All right, why is this? I know we're going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but this is like the TLDR version, and it's still not short. Why is this? Something people usually don't know about resistances is this. Frost resistances, okay, how resistances normally are supposed to work is when you get hit with a spell, the spell will do one of 5 things. It'll either do 0% damage, 25% damage, 50% damage, 75% damage, or 100% damage, right? It's one of 5 things. Fire resist and frost resist are the exceptions to this rule. Every other spell damage type in the game plays by the 1 in 5 rule. Frost, however, is only a 1 in 2. It's either always fully resisted or it either does full damage. That's the only 2 options it has. It'll never do a partial damage. You never see 25, 75, or 50%. Never see it. It's 100% or 0% or fully resisted, nothing in between. Fire resist is a complete opposite of this. Once you start stacking up fire resist, you will never see 0% resisted criticals, and you will never see 100% damage. It'll always be a partial without exception. It becomes very mathematically predictable. So, for example, if you have a 50% fire damage reduction, which is 200 fire resist, okay, it's 40 resistance equals a 10% damage reduction. There's no diminishing returns. How do you know this stuff, Paladin? I have a mage, and me and Drakova would sit outside of Stormwind and cast spells at each other and figure this shit out. All right, moving on. What this means is if you have a 50% fire damage reduction, when you get hit with a fire spell, there's going to be a 25% chance that it only does 25% damage, a 50% chance that it'll do 50% damage, and then a 25% chance that it does 75% damage. Okay, like that's the spread. So it's like half. You get the point, right? It's just math. You never see 0%. You never see 100% with fire resist. They're super consistent. Frost spells are a coin flip every time at 50%. All right, cool. All right, so that's some of the weird nuances going on here. Note we haven't even talked about thick obsidian breastplate yet. I'm going to get into more of the horrifying details here. All right, so one of the more important things to realize is what I talked about in the Better Mage Guide video. Get the mic in the right spot here. And, okay, cool. Yeah. Is what the hell are you doing when you're coming out of sheep? Okay. What are you doing when you come out of sheep? You coming out of sheep is because you got hit with a frostbolt, right? You took a frostbolt to the face. The mage is currently casting a frostbolt. What do you do? Well, the answer to that question is it depends entirely. I got to clean my glasses real fast here. Driving me nuts. It depends entirely upon the distance between you and the damn mage. This is one of the more subtle but very important things. If the mage is at like 30-yard range and you just run at them, you're going to eat an extra frostbolt for your troubles. Because they're just too damn far away. You can't get to them in time. You can't stop them from casting this frostbolt. Basically, you can run 8.6 yards a second. You're going to cover a 17-yard distance in the amount of time it takes Homie to cast his 2-second frostbolt. But you got to remember, it's not a 2-second frostbolt, it's like a 1.5-second frostbolt, because the frostbolt had to travel to 30 yards in the air to hit you and get you out of sheep. Then you have to reorient yourself towards the mage, because, Lord fucking knows where your character is pointed when you come out of sheep. And then you have to start running at him. So it's more like a 1.5 seconds. And that means you can only get to him about 13 yards. And you only got a 10 range stun. Which means that if he's farther than 22 yards away, you're not getting to him before he gets off that frostbolt. Now, this is a very important concept. All right, farther than 23 yards, 22 yards away, you're not making it to him in time. Run away from him. All right, run away. If he's closer than 20 yards. My bad. If he's closer than that, like at 21 yards, then you run towards him. So if the mage is close, you run towards him because you can stun him before he can get off that frostbolt. If he's farther away than 24 or so yards, then you run away from him because you can run away fast enough that he can't get the frostbolt off. Other important things to note here is leeway. Leeway, when you're physically moving away from the mage, you're adding +3 yards to his frostbolt. Frostbolts have a 36-yard range when they're spec'd. So when you get out to the 36-yard range, just stop for a second, and that'll instantly minus 3 yards off of the mage's frostbolt. Not super important, but every once in a while, your butthole will pucker because you don't think you're going to make it in time. The last act you do on planet Earth before the mage finishes the frostbolt is to stop moving. Right, because that'll instantly make his spell minus 3 yards. So basically, if you're moving away, this frostbolt has a range, especially if it's talented, of something stupid like 39 yards. But the moment I stop, it becomes 36 yards. Okay, so let's say, for the sake of my sanity, that this mage was 25 yards away. What the hell do we do? Are we running at him when we come out of sheep, or are we running away? According to what I just told you're running the F away. Right, you're going to run away from this jackass. He's 25 yards away. Okay, he's got he's Jesus, this is so nuanced. I just got done telling you that because of the air travel time of frostbolt that got you out of sheep, that it's a 1.5 second cast. This is the case at a 30-yard range because the frostbolt has farther to travel. When the mage is closer, it's not the case because the mage had a shorter travel distance. So it's not going to be a 1.5 second cast. It's going to be closer to a 1.7 or about a 1.7 cast. Okay, so in 1.7 seconds of movement speed, let me get out a calculator. Jesus Christ, 1.7 times 8.6, because that's our movement speed in yards. Okay, we can get away we'll just say 14 yards. We can run for 14 fucking yards away from this mage before he completes this 36-yard frostbolt, right? So he's 25 yards away. We can run for 14 yards before he completes the frostbolt. Oh, look, we had plenty of time to run away at 25 yards. Especially if we're remembering our damn leeway mechanic. It was technically an extra half a yard. We save a bit of time on reorienting ourselves when we come out of sheep because it becomes super easy to orient ourselves to run away from the mage. You just point your camera in the direction you want to go and, click the mouse button and you'll just immediately start running for your life. So easy peasy to run away from a mage at 36-yard range. Not that big of a deal. So if you get frostbolted and he's 25 yards or so, run for your damn life. What does it look like in the opposite? Clear, clear, clear. Let's say we ran at him, right, at 25 yards, just for shits and giggles. Okay, well, that's going to be 25. He's 25 yards away. Now I don't want a plus, I want a minus. So we're going to do 25 minus, what did we say before? It was 14? 14 yards. You can see we're not going to be able to get Hand of Justice stun on him before he gets that Frostbolt off. Right? This is but if he was any closer, then it becomes very clear. A slightly different story, right? So I'm sure you've seen this playing Paladin versus Mage before, especially with like sheep and stuff, where there'll be certain distances where the Mage can just get off a sheep in time and you can't quite close the distance and get a stun on. And then there'll be another time where he barely fails to get the sheep off by like 1/10 of a second and you get like Hand of Justice on him. This is actually a very, very tight range that this situation is transpiring. This is one of those ranges. So you can see that like at 24, 23 yards, running at him becomes the thing to do. Around 25 yards or more, then we have to run away. Very nebulous, very nuanced. If a mage ever watches this guide, your correct distance for opening up on a paladin is actually 25 yards. That'll make it extremely nebulous for the paladin. He won't know if he's supposed to run at you. He won't know if he's supposed to run away. It can be dangerous for the mage too, but that's the ideal distance to open up on a paladin is actually 25 yards. Just because you're putting him in this weird little tight spot. Okay, let's see here. Right, so that's the important thing to remember is if you do it wrong, right? If he's a little closer and you try running away, you're going to eat an extra frostbolt for your troubles. If he's a little farther away and you run at him, you're going to eat an extra frostbolt for your troubles. So now you've eaten 2 frostbolts, you stun him, he blinks away, you try to go for the heal, you Blessing of Freedom yourself and go for the heal, he counterspells you, and the next thing you know, you're you're literally about to eat 2 fire blasts and another frostbolt before you can actually get a heal in on yourself. All right, so basically, everything we're about to say becomes +1 frostbolt, and that is really fucking bad. You can still survive +1 frostbolt a lot of the time with the gear and stuff that we're talking about, but you really want to avoid it because it changes the math significantly. All right, so let's talk about a proper play. Just a quick recap of the video before this one. So make sure we're still recording. I didn't press P or anything recently. Yes. What happens is you're in a sheep. You get caught with a frostbolt. You look at the range. You either run at him and stun him and play that out. So you run at him, stun him. He blinks, and you just keep bait out the counter spell with freedom on you, and you just run. That's not the norm. Usually the mages are significantly farther away from you, so you get hit with a frostbolt. They're charging up their frostbolt. You just go. And you start running. You freedom yourself. No, that's not true. What the hell are we doing? You'll start running away immediately. The mage will go, oh shit, I can't complete this frostbolt, and he'll start running after you. Then you stop, you freedom yourself while you're moving. Then you stop and you start healing yourself. The mage will catch up to you like no problem, and he'll get a counterspell on you, right? But once he gets the counterspell on you, you just keep running away. If he's smart, he'll wait quite a bit of time before getting the counterspell, so now he's within Fire Blast range. And so now you have this scenario where the two of you are just running away kind of like this at the 20-yard mark, and he'll be like, Fire Blast, wait 8 seconds, and then Fire Blast again. And once you stop to go for the heal, which is 2.5 seconds, he'll stop and go for a Frostbolt, which is 2 seconds, which means you're eating this Frostbolt before your heal actually gets off. But it'll literally be eat Frostbolt, heal goes off. You'll note that he's too far away to get a Code of Cold. So this whole sequence plays out, the Song That Never Ends sequence, as Frostbolt, Fire Blast, Frostbolt. If he tries anything else, things can get a little interesting or frisky. If he pulls out other PvP trinkets, very rarely to see, but, grenades can theoretically be a thing. A Tidal Charm can be a thing. Goblin Mortar can be a thing. Usually mages are using burst trinkets. They got some really terrifying burst trinkets that they prefer over just about any other trinket, which is why you almost never see anything like that. But the Paladin has an ocean of tools in his own damn toolkit to counter the Mage. It's also important to realize that when we were doing this runaway sequence and the Mage had to do Fire Blast, there's a gear swapping opportunity here. Because you only have to be out of combat for 6 seconds in order to gear swap. And Fire Blast has an 8-second cooldown. Even when you're talent it's got a 6.5-second cooldown, and it only has a 20-yard range. He doesn't have any other ability than to root his ass in place and wand you, or to cast like a 1-second Frostbolt to keep you in combat. So there's a gear swapping opportunity right here for you as a Paladin. And this happens every time they try to burst on you. There's this damn gear swapping opportunity every time this sequence of events plays out. So this is why I don't really talk about how, like, what if he does this trinket? What if he does that trinket? Well, the truth of the matter is you have a gear swapping opportunity at all time. Basically, every time they're trying to burst you down, there's a damn gear swapping opportunity there. So it's like Burrower Shell, Major Recombobulator Ray, any kind of resistance trinket. The 2 major resistance trinkets will stack. There's all kinds of, like, frost reflectors, fire reflectors. Like, holy crap, you can see his trinket and grenade use with your own trinket and grenade use. Also keep in mind that the fire resist will have like a 50% chance to resist the stun of Goblin Mortar and grenade and so forth and so on. And we'll cover that when we get there. But it's important to realize that this is the sequence of events. This is what a Mage Burst looks like, and this is why I keep yelling at you people. What the hell are you doing to cause yourself to die to these mages? Are you just running at them? When I say, are you just running at them like a damn ape, what I mean by that is, did you get hit with a Frostbolt out of a sheep and just go, lo, 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 and run at the Mage? So his burst sequence is literally like Frostbolt, Frostbolt, Fire Blast, Frostbolt, and then you get a Catch a Holy Blast? Like, what the hell are we doing? No. Depends on the range. You either run your happy little ass away or you run towards them. Okay, cool. If a Mage is standing at about the 25-yard mark, that's when you need to start. You need to take note that they're at the 25 range mark, and you need to stop moving. It gets dumber than, oh my god, okay, fine. You really want me to go there. You really want me to go to the horrifying depths of nuance in this fight. Okay, let's say there's a Mage that watches this damn video, and they pick up that I just said, oh, you're a Mage? Your proper range for bursting on a Paladin is 25 fucking yards, because at that point it becomes really difficult for us to run away from your damn Frostbolt, and it becomes really dangerous for us to try to close on you in either case, as we just showed mathematically, right, from the timeline wise. Here's what you're supposed to do as a Paladin. You're supposed to run away until he's about to finish his Frostbolt. And then stopping is the easy thing to do, right? That's why I suggest stopping. But if you're playing at the highest level, rather than stopping, you'll just backpedal. So you'll be running away, you'll be facing your camera towards the Mage while you're running away in a straight line, and then the last thing you do in life is to click a button, spin around, look at him, and backpedal, right? That's the last thing you do right before he gets to Frostbolt. Why? Well, because stopping will reduce the leeway. It'll make his spell range go from 39 yards, 36 plus 3, to suddenly, because you're not running anymore, to suddenly 36. Backpedaling has an additional effect to it, which is it reduces like melee and range spells range by 2 yards. All right, you follow me on this? This is one of the reasons why you're fighting like a two-handed warrior or something like that. You want to backpedal away from them because they like to do this thing where they're basically weaving in and out of melee range with you to try to hit you with like a two-hander, especially if you're like sword and board. You just back up, and their effective melee range is now 3 yards because it's minus 2 yards, I think, on the leeway. So their spell range will suddenly go from 36 yards. My bad. It'll suddenly go from 39 yards to 36 if you just stop moving. But if instead you did a back pedal, it'll be minus 5 yards. So whatever 39 minus 5 is, 34 yards. And that's enough range to get the job done. Are we clear on this? Okay, cool. This is one of the reasons why I'm a keyboard turning paladin. You know, oh my god, you're a backpedaling keyboard turner. Like, fuck yeah, I am. You're goddamn right I am. Holy shit. Yes, please. Hard to do. I don't usually don't do the backpedal thing. Basically, when my butthole puckers, that's when I am like, oh, okay, backpedal. But usually I'll just blah, 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 and right before they finish the spell, just stop and then keep moving again. And see if it went off or not. But if I'm super not unsure if I'm going to make it or not, which I'm going to know pretty quickly, I'll just stop and backpedal and then be like, all right, did that fail? All right, cool. All right, so let's actually finally get into the damn math of this thing. Actually, I'm going to take a break. Be right back. All right, we are back. If you guys are wondering, for whatever reason, why the hell this Paladin vs. Mage video took so long, where the hell was this during Flesh, Classic World of Warcraft, yada, yada, yada. The answer is you don't actually fight a lot of mages at like super high levels, so it's really hard to learn a bunch of stuff. And you don't really know about all the interactions and so forth and this and that or yada, yada, yada. But more, what happened in this particular case was Drakova was gearing up for like some tournament stuff. He was literally gearing up and theory crafting to like fight in tournaments. And he basically dragged me down into the pits of Paladin versus Mage theory crafting. He didn't do it intentionally. It was just a byproduct of thinking about how to deal with this class or that class or this thing or that thing. Because he would talk about, like, his resist suit plan and yada yada, and I would, mention this and mention that. But at least we know the basics, and so we can have a conversation around that. I'm still trying to teach you guys the basics of this damn matchup. Holy crap, is this matchup a pain in the ass. All right, so let's look at the numbers here. All right, so this is the number of damage that a mage is going to do in Era. So we're talking about like your fully geared Atiesh, Nax Mage, or some crap like that. Their basic frost bolts do something stupid like 1.2k. When they crit, they do like 2.4k, 600, yada, yada, yada. It's important to note, and we'll get there when we get there, that these are all high roll figures. Spell damage in Classic WoW is actually very consistent. Like, it doesn't vary. The only variance, there's only two variances at play. There's every spell in the game does between it does X damage and X plus 100 damage. So, for example, these fire blasts aren't doing 600 damage. They're doing between 500 and 600 damage. These frost bolts are not doing 1200 damage. They're doing between 1100 to 1200 damage, because there's a 100 damage variance baked into just about every spell in the entire game. So the spell can either high roll or low roll with its 100, and it can either crit or not crit. So all this math is based upon the assumption that the spell's high roll. That'll become super important later when we start talking about HP breakpoints, which we're going to do right now. Okay, so the only real scale... Okay, so what the hell does all this information over here mean? All right, well, 2FB in caps means Frostbolt, and 2FB in lowercase means Fire Blast. All right? And, yeah, crits, in parentheses, means what exactly is critting. Because mages have like a 30% crit chance. And so, basically, we need to understand as a paladin, of these 4 spells that are coming our way, what are the signs we need to worry about? Like, what is going to cause us to consider using a defensive trinket, a whipper root tuber, bubble, or so forth and so on? Like, what combination of crit and high roll out of these 4 spells is going to cause us to need to use one of our defensive options? Because there's only 2 ways we die to a mage. The first way is that we survive all their nonsense, we run out of mana, and then we die. The second way that we die to a mage is RNGesus comes for us. So now we're investigating what RNGesus coming for us specifically looks like. All right. Now, of these 4 spells, as near as I can tell, and I'm not super good at math, so you'll just have to roll with me on this, 25% of the time, Damn it. Okay, how do I put this? If two of these spells are critting us, like we're ignoring the percent, like how often this happens right now. We're just assuming that basically what I'm trying to say is that if three of these spells are critting us, we're gonna have to use a defensive trinket pretty much 100% of the time. That'll change when we start factoring in resistances, but pretty much 100% of the time, three of these four spells crit, some kind of defense is coming out of us. If only two of them are critting, however, things get a little bit more nuanced. That's what this explores. It is very rare that more... Okay, Jesus, it's all the math that is over here. We'll get to that later. All right, so the question is, if only two of these are going to crit, what are the possibilities? And the first one, of course, is that the two Fire Blast crit. And the second possibility is that the two Frostbolts crit. And the third possibility is that one of the Frostbolts crit us, and then one of the Fire Blast crits us, right? And then these percent figures, 25, 25, and 50%, are the percent chance that a mage is doing an opener. He's doing a burst on us. He's trying to kill us. He's getting two crits out of these four spells. What are the odds that those two crits are one of these scenarios? And this answer is 25% of the time it'll be two Fire Blasts, 25% of the time it'll be the two Frostbolts that crits, and then 50% of the time it will be one Fire Blast and one Frostbolt that crits you. How I came to this conclusion? Well, in theory, if I know my probability, I would have to make like a 16 by 16 or more matrix and, actually suss it out or so forth. But if you know your genetics, right? Like, X from the female and then like XY from the male possibility. Actually, maybe I got it wrong because there's like two possibilities from the man. So it'd be like 1 times 2. Whatever. I imagined it simplified down pretty quickly to being closer to this percent. These percentages might be off. Feel free to look at it. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be incorrect. But I assumed the same math played out because I would need like a 4x4 matrix to actually suss out the possibilities. And I was like, it probably just simplifies down to like the equivalent of like a 1x1 matrix, or even like a 2x2 matrix, which I think will pan out something close to this or the equivalent thereof. So whatever, we'll just go with 25, 25, 50%. Feel free to look into it if you want. Fuck if I know. Okay, so let's just look at the scenario numbers here for a second. So if you know an era, we say that in era, your HP breakpoint as a paladin is 5,150, 5,200, somewhere around there. And this number right here, when you take the 1 Frostbolt and the 1 Fire Blast crit with max rolls from the mage, you can see very quickly that if we have 5,150 HP, we survive this. 5,200 HP, we survive this. Anything less than that, and we're risking death, right? In theory, there's a high roll, low roll thing, so it's a very low probability. If I'm at like 5,000 HP, and 2 of these are critting, it's kind of it's a bit of a coin toss. Like, did he high roll, did he low roll, as to whether or not I die. But with 5,200 HP breakpoint, 5,100 HP breakpoint, even if they all high rolled, and 50% of the time we're going to survive that, no problem. This one is obviously deadly, the 2 Frostbolt crits. Deadly, going to force out a defensive trinket at 6,000 damage. Again, this is why breakpoints exist. How do I explain this? Whipperroot Tuber's average heal. Whipperroot Tuber heals from between... Because we have a number of defensive options as a paladin, right? Our most consistent defensive options are Whipperroot Tuber on a 2-minute cooldown, Healing Potion on a 2-minute cooldown, and then usually something like Burrower Shell Trinket also on a 2-minute cooldown. And there's a bunch of other little options sprinkled in there to help fill in the gaps, right? We already talked about it. Technically, Tidal Charm, Goblin Mortar are also defensive trinkets. Arena Grandmaster is a defensive trinket. Any fire reflector is a defensive trinket. Any fire resistance or any resistance buff is technically also a defensive trinket. Yada, yada, yada. We have tons of defensive options, and we have the ability to gear swap. But let's just assume that all we have that we're working with is Whipper Tuber. Okay? On average, if everything max rolls and the 2 Frostbolts crit us, they'll do 6,000 damage. Holy crap. Well, Whipper Tuber's average healing is like 800. It heals between 700 and 900 HP. If I have 5,208 hit points, which is what we suggested the breakpoint to be, or 5,100 HP, which is also the suggestion of the breakpoint, the mage would have to high roll on everything, and the Whipper Tuber would have to roll below average, and then we die. The mathematical probability of this is very, very low. All right? It is far more so the case that the mage will yeah, you get the point. It's really not going to happen. So basically, what this means is around 5,100 HP, 5,200 HP off of Whipper Tuber alone, we're going to survive the combination of a mage's burst virtually 100% of the time. It'll be like a cold day in hell that we die from a mage from basically 2 crits in this sequence. And keep in mind, we haven't even factored in our resistances, and we haven't factored in thick obsidian breastplate. So very quickly, I'm hoping you can see that we are stupidly hard to kill. This is the point of this video of why I very casually in the previous video said the mage can't kill you, blah, blah, blah. That's why we end up killing them at the 8-minute mark. And you're like, I think, the comments, of course, in comment section were like, I think you're underestimating mage DPS in phase 3, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. No, shut the fuck up. Pull out a calculator. Know your ranges. Pay attention. All right? Cool? So, even without resistances, even without thick obsidian breastplate, mages have to get stupidly fucking lucky to kill us. They need like 3 spell crits to kill us, and then only like 25% of the time when we're getting hit with a bunch of spells are they like forcing out some kind of defensive trinket from us. And we have all kinds of defensive trinkets, bubble, PvP trinket, yada, yada, yada. Tidal Charm is also in there. Goblin Mortar is also in there. You also note that the assumption here that we're making is that mages only have a 30% crit chance. However, this math over here is acting like mages have something closer to a, let me think, like a 50% crit chance, right? So basically, and that brings us down here. Okay, variance. Like how often, like when it plays out like this. But how often is this 2 crits or more scenario playing out, which will end up forcing out a variety of defensive trinkets to us? Because again, how do we die as a paladin? We die because we either run out of defensive trinkets and we get killed in a burst, or we underestimate the burst like a big dummy, and we just die even though we have a bunch of defensive trinkets. But that's an us problem, not a gearing problem. Or we run out of mana and die. In the previous video, I talk about how easy it is for us to not run out of mana through skeleton summoning pets alone. You have 2 skeleton pet summons. They can keep the mage in combat. You won't be in combat while the mage is in combat. It plays absolute nightmare scenario with the mage's mana. You can very easily eat or drink or just passively mana regen in a sheep while this mage cannot eat and drink. Super hard for a mage to actually us in a duel when you know what the hell you're doing. So he has to actually kill us with spells. All right, let's figure this out. Okay. All right, so here's how I did the math on how often a mage is forcing out a defensive trinket from us or we die, or a defensive option from us or we die. Variance is here's my assumption. Variance at 1 in 4 is ×2. Okay, so 1 in 4 of the mage's bursts will ×2 all variant probabilities. Okay, we're already assuming that everything is high rolling, so it won't double that probability. But statistically speaking, you would double that probability from like from 50% to 75%. But we have 1 in 4 times he's getting double crit chance. Basically, his crit chance spikes up to 60% from like 30%. Okay, so at times 2 variants and 4 spell casts, he's going to get like 2.4 crits. Like 2.4 of these spells will crit. That means it's about 1 in 9 times that he'll of his openers, like 1 in 9 times of seriously trying to kill you. 3 of these 4 spells will crit. 1 in 9 times 2 will crit. Yada yada yada. The reason why I'm going with 1 in 8s down here is because they're not the first Frostbolt, but the final Frostbolt gets a little bit of critical strike bonus. This 30% is also not hard. They might have a little bit more crit. They might have less crit. Yada, yada, yada. Right? There might be a burst trinket involved. There might not be a burst trinket involved. Let's just roll with it. Moving on. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that 1 in 8 times when they burst on us, 3 of these things are going to crit. 1 in 8 times, 2 of them are going to crit. 1 in 8 times, keep in mind this is without frost resistance. This is without fire resistance. This is without factoring in thick obsidian breastplate. This is just I got no thick obsidian breastplate. I have no resistances whatsoever, and I'm just a 5,200 HP paladin, but I know my shit. All right. In that scenario, 1 in 8 times is going to be 3 critical strikes. 3 critical strikes will not always force out a defensive trinket from you, but just to be safe, it probably will. Right, so it'll probably look like, more specifically, yeah, so you might see like this Frostbolt crit, this Fire Blast crit, this Fire Blast also crits, and you're just not waiting around to see the final one. Or you'll see this Frostbolt crit, this Fire Blast crit. Let's get some things going here because I can Control Z. You'll see this thing crit, you'll see this thing crit. You won't see this crit, but you're not waiting around to see what this is. You're just like, okay, I'm not taking the chance. I'll just, whip a root tuber or whatever. Who gives a shit? Why is that? Or you might see like the Fire Blast crit and the Fire Blast crit, but you don't get to see this final card come down. You're just looking at the situation and you're like, okay, well if this crits, I might die. Let me just do something, because you at least get to see if these are high rolling or low rolling, and you'll know whether you feel comfortable or uncomfortable in the current situation. You can also do some bandaging. Bandaging really helps. Drakova really likes getting a bandage tick right before he gets a bitch slapped with something. Not usually the greatest idea because it depends on the range, of course. Very nuanced of how far the mage is away from you, because you can just run up and Kona Cold you, or Baby Fire Blast will come off cooldown or something. You just go for the Holy Light. Oh, so much to talk about. All right, cool. So let's say you're looking at the situation and this is your scenario right here. This 4,200, the 2 Fire Blast crits. So you're seeing RNGesus come for you, and both Fire Blasts have critted. Sweet. You'd be looking around like, okay, what's Thick Obsidian Breastplate doing? Yada, yada, yada. You'd be looking around, as the Thick Obsidian Breastplate proc on the Frostbolt? Did it proc on the first Fire Blast? Like, if so, you're gaining a significant amount of HP. So you might be fine. But if this final Frostbolt crits, right, we have to add another, like, theoretical plus 1,200 damage to this 4,200 damage, right? Which you can very clearly see sometimes will force out a defensive trinket. And then sometimes it won't force out a defensive trinket. Why? Because Thick Obsidian Breastplate is in play. High roll, low roll becomes a very big factor here, right? Because at plus 1,200 HP, we're at 5,400 HP, which means that we're close enough to our break point that we may or may not actually have to whip a root tuber here. If you have any kind of fire resistance going on in here, you've got frost resistance going on in here. This is why fire resist is fascinating, because on paper, you might be tempted to say, I get to see what both frost bolts are doing, I get to see what both fire blasts are doing, and then I get to respond accordingly based upon my paper warrior theory crafting, right? But in reality, it's like poker. You're only gonna see the first 3 spells before you have to make a judgment call on the final spell, which means the final spell always gets assumed as it's going to crit. Right? Or we look at the odds and we calculate the math and we're like, is it worth taking this risk? There's a 10% chance that I'm going to die here. Is it worth taking that risk? Do I need this risk? Yada, 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 right? And since fire resistance is so consistent, like, so for example, if you have even a little bit of fire resistance here, ooh, what's going on down there? I'm like scratching my foot and, damn, that itches. That's weird. All right, deal with that later. What the hell? I think it's a mosquito bite. I think a mosquito bit me, like on the side of my toe. What the hell? Piece of shit. I guess I'll kill him later. Damn. You're trapped in here with me. I'm not trapped in here with you. What the hell was I thinking about? We're still recording, right? It was like over an hour. We're getting there. It's not that bad. So you have even a little bit of fire resist, you wouldn't be worried here, right? Because you'll see this didn't crit, you'll see this hit you, that hit you, but you know it gets very consistent on the resistances. Wouldn't matter if everything high rolled, wouldn't matter if this critted, you're going to survive that no problem, right? So not always are the 3 spell crits coming down going to force out a defensive trinket from you. But let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that 100% of the time it does, even though realistically that's not what's going to happen. If I had no fire resistance whatsoever and I didn't have a thick obsidian breastplate, it would matter whether or not the high roll or low roll is happening. With thick obsidian breastplate, it matters if thick obsidian breastplate procced or not. And then as soon as you factor in resistances, particularly fire resist due to its consistency, it doesn't matter anymore 25% of the time. 50% of the time, yeah, you're probably defensive trinketing, whether you like it or not. But again, varies with thick obsidian breastplate and fire resist, high roll, low roll. You'll know whether you feel comfortable taking this final frostbolt to the face or not. And of course, you know, if the 2 frostbolts, if the first frostbolt crit. All right, so the TLDR on all of this is this. If the first frostbolt that causes you to leave sheep, the frostbolt that takes you out of sheep crits, that's when you as a paladin suddenly need to pay attention. If the first frostbolt did not crit, you usually don't have to pay much attention. You're going to survive unless things just keep coming up. Unless he just keeps rolling hard 6s, right? You won't actually have to pay attention, especially in my proposed build, which has 190% fire resist and thick obsidian, right? You just don't have to pay attention because it's like we just talked about. I don't have to pay attention if these 2 things crit at all, because they would have to be like, even at only 25% damage reduction, fire blast crits, I'm still perfectly fine on HP with my 5,200 HP. Even if everything high rolled, this is a crit, everything's critting, I don't give a shit. I don't even have to whip a root tuber. I'm perfectly fine. Thick obsidian breastplate is asleep, not doing anything. I still don't care. Fire resistance is consistent. I don't have to pay attention. The only fucking thing I have to pay attention to when I'm as a fire resistance paladin is, did this first frostbolt crit or not? And when that first frostbolt crits, then I'm watching these other ones. Oh shit, did that crit? Was it a 75% resist or was it a 25% resist crit? Oh shit, this is critting? All right, fine. Have my whiproot tuber. Maybe this didn't crit. What does the situation look like? You know, it's still very nuanced as to whether or not I need a defensive trinket or not in this particular scenario. I'll spare you the math, but this is the kind of crap that we look at high level. This might sound insane. I have a video about Drakova. It's like I made a video that was what high-level Paladin PvP looks like in Era, and it's basically me just watching a very short clip of Drakova beating 2 elemental shamans. And a lot of it is me basically pointing out him massaging his RNG options. And look, we don't have a lot to do as a paladin. We don't have a lot of buttons to push. But what we do have a lot to do is watching the RNG that is coming our way. We're a very reactive class, if that makes any sense. So, for example, the shaman stopped and was casting a lightning bolt on Drakova. Drakova ran up. No, what happened was the shaman activated his burst trinket on his, and then went for a lightning bolt. And that burst trinket is terrifying. It's elemental attunement or some shit burst trinket, plus 20% nature damage and a plus 20% mana cost on nature damage spells or some shit like that. I think it might even be like fire frost spells or something stupid like that. It's a big green circle and the sound effect that pops up on a shaman. And Drakova basically stops because that changes the math on everything, right? Because it means this lightning bolt suddenly... it's more like one of these frost bolts. Its basic bitch is the basic bitch amount is going to be 12. Actually, let me just go find it real fast here. I'll spare you guys, but I want to show you what this looks like. Are we good? Yeah, we're good. I want to show you guys what this looks like at the high level. Like you might be thinking to yourself, this sounds really intense, yada yada yada. No, it's actually super easy to do as a paladin because we're not doing anything else. Like we're not actually clicking buttons. So our eyeballs are just watching the RNG. Even classes that have a lot to take care of, like mages and pay attention to this, pay attention to that, are still looking at the RNG as it comes down. So don't worry about it. Let me pause the video here and I'll go find that little clip. All right, we are back. Yes, indeed. Okay, cool. So it's only like it's less than a minute video. We'll just watch it in full real fast again, but I'll pause it right when the thing I want to talk about pops up. This is fully geared era level paladin. He's got Hand of Justice on. He's got Burrower Shell. He's wearing the shoulder plates are like Grand Crusader. He's got like at least 2, maybe 3-piece PvP gear. He's a Ret Reckoning Paladin. These Paladins vary in how much HP they have. Their breakpoint is 5,600. Again, if you want to look at why that is, like just look at like the mage numbers and yada yada yada. 5,600, you're feeling very comfortable, even if you don't have resistances. Or these builds also have thick obsidian breastplate, so you might see thick obsidian breastplate pop in this thing. There's a slight alteration variant of this that uses like 4 pieces of, damn it, what is it? Avengers. Again, I've got a gearing guide in Era, which will bring that up, and it talks about the numbers and the breakpoints, like how much HP you can be expecting to have. But they usually have something stupid, like he's a variation of this. But they have something stupid like 5,600, 5,800 HP, varies. And they'll have like round about 5,000 mana bar. So when you see him casting a Holy Light and you realize that it's taking very little off his mana bar. Paladins in Era are fucking monsters. I don't know what to tell you. They are terrifying. But let's just watch the video real fast. Oh, I'm actually in this fight, believe it or not. My character's name... Am I not here? I guess I'm not here. No, I should be here. I should be dead. Yeah, there I am. Convictions is dead. So this is my Paladin Era Convictions. You'll see me running up to him right at the end, but he cuts the video off because he's about to die. Like that's me getting on top of him. I'm trying to go for a heal, but there's like a bunch of fucking horde behind us, and he's about to get earthshocked and died. I can't remember if he lived or he didn't live. His thick obsidian breastplate is proccing right now. You can see the icon up here. You can see the cinematic taking place. I don't know if he lived or died here. It cuts off before all these shamans jump on him. But we'll see that in a second. But you can see he survives with non-existent HP, and he kills them both. So we're about to see what the hell happens. All right, cool. Am I talking to him? Yeah, murder squad of Ellie Shamans, lol. Yeah, I remember that BG. That sucked. This is back when I was, I just came back, like, fresh. I was like, holy crap, what's going on here? All right, let's do it. Few shamans show up. If you're wondering what spec these shamans are, they are both nature swiftness shamans. So this shaman that's running in right now just activated Nature Swiftness. So you're going to see as soon as he turns around this corner, there's going to be a Chain Lightning on Dracova's face. That's, yeah, moving on. It's I could go into detail, but anyways, go watch the video. I don't want to make this video longer than it has to be. Let's just watch proper play here for a second. Two Holy Lights and run at him. That's the proper play. Don't have time to top off. Yep. That's... Alright, where is it at? It'll happen soon. Yeah, down goes the totem. And it's going to happen. Right, yeah, right here. Okay, so you hear the sound effect. You see the green swirly thing. Okay, cool. We cool on this? Alright. Watch it again. That's elemental attunement going off. So Drakova goes, oh shit, and he has to reassess the situation. So he used Burrower Shell, but he just ate this grounding Nova Totem, right? Again, I got the numbers down here. The numbers down here aren't for era. The numbers get basically go up like plus 100 damage. That's actually not true. This might be AQ. I could be wrong, but they go up a little bit. This Fire Nova Totem, since it hit him, he can't rely on Burrower Shell. His Burrower Shell is almost completely used up, even though he visually still has a shield on him. Burrower Shell is not there for him, and he knows it. This lightning bolt that's about to hit him visually is telling us the following. This thing is either going to do 1,200 damage, or it's going to do 2,400 damage. Now, it can high roll, it can low roll, we don't know. So we're looking at this situation as a Paladin. We have a few seconds to decide what we want to do. Do we want to go for a Flash of Light? We're going to get that off easily before he gets this lightning bolt into us, but it'll reset our auto attack timer. Are we going to survive this damn lightning bolt if it crits? When this lightning bolt is over, does he have enough for an Earth Shock? Do I have to worry about that as well? What do I do? Well, you're going to see Drakova, he takes a moment to analyze the situation. He goes, yeah, I don't really like this. Actually, that's not what he did. Okay, watch his Whipperroot Tuber. It's over here, right? Okay, watch at what point he Whipperroot Tubers. So he sees the green shit coming, and he immediately goes Whipperroot Tuber. Like, that, he didn't... he has it bound. That was an instant reaction. He went, oh shit, I need more HP. So now he's looking at Whipperroot Tuber's healing effect. Come on, do it. Yeah, I know. He's like, did Whipperroot Tuber high roll, low roll, crit heal me? Do I need any other kind of healing? Do I have any other kind of healing? Do it. Boom. So Whipperroot Tuber goes off, only heals him for 780. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this? Why? Whatever. It only healed for 790, so that's like a dead average, basically, right? He still feels like he doesn't have enough HP, so he goes for a bandage. He doesn't get the bandage off. The spell does indeed crit him, but you can see, since it's a 2,000 some or so odd crit, that the thing low rolled, right? Because it'll either be 1,100 damage or it'll be 1,200 damage. This guy's gear isn't really up as high in damage as some of the other shamans, so it clearly low rolled, even though you get the point. It low rolled, all right. It low rolled, but he's perfect. He would survive this no problem. He could easily survive an Earth Shock, even if an Earth Shock crit right now. But the shaman doesn't have enough mana for an Earth Shock crit, and it'll just play out as is. So he hits it, kills it. He takes a shit ton of damage, 966. In my video, I was like, what the fuck was that damage? Did you get Earth Shocked? What the hell just happened? That's actually him getting crit by Shaman Lightning Shield, plus the 20% damage from Elemental Attunement, which puts it up over 400 damage, and it crit. Like, that's what happened. But this giant... you can see Thick Obsidian Breastplate proccing at the top. You can see the animation of Thick Obsidian Breastplate at the top. There's a shit ton of shamans coming in the background. You can see them riding up. Not right here. Yeah, look at the background. Look at this. That's the shaman he just killed, coming in to try to save the day, right? So, yeah, two of them actually. So he finishes them off. I see what's happening. I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? I don't have holy shock. I can't do fuck all. And I go for the holy light just in case it happens. But I think he just eats an earth shock and dies here. That's why the video cuts out. Okay, cool. That's what it looks like. That's where your brain is at. You'll notice he saw the green shit and was like, I am not HP'd for this green shit. I need to whip a root right now. And then there was a pause. He didn't instantly start bandaging. He was like, is it enough? Did it high roll? Did it low roll? What did it do? Like, fuck, bandage. He didn't get the bandage off in time. But, that's what it looks like. Okay, we're clear on that? Are we good? Yes? Okay, cool. Let's get back to it. I'm going to pause the video again. All right, we are back. Drinking a lot of water, and you can imagine where that leads me every once in a while. All right, so where the hell were we? All right, we were still talking about life. We're still talking about life in the matchup as if for somehow I had no resistances and somehow I had no thick obsidian breastplate, right? And what does life look like? Well, at a very simplistic level, it looks something like this. It's like 1 in 8 times I get opened up on, I have to use a defensive cooldown. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Plenty of those, lots of gear swapping opportunities. So I have to, during the course of a duel, I have to use like 2 defensive trinkets, like whoop-de-fucking-do. 1 out of 8 times, 25% of the time, because I would be the 2 frostbolt crits, I have to use a defensive trinket potentially. Everything here is potential because, again, lots of nuance, right? And then 6 out of 8 times I get opened up on, I don't give a shit. That's if I'm just butt naked and nothing else going on, and I actually have my HP breakpoint. But of course, everything is more nuanced than that because this would be the case if we were like a pure paper warrior and we're not observing that we never get to see what the hell this last frostbolt is. This is also one of the reasons why the sequence is this way. The sequence can be different. It can be frostbolt, fireblast, frostbolt, fireblast is another sequence of the whole runaway scenario that takes place. What do I need? I need this and I need red. But you never get to see. But it's this way so that specifically you as the Paladin don't get to see this frostbolt. Which means, unfortunately, we always have to assume that this last frostbolt is going to crit us. So we're going to decide our defensive trinket right before we get hit by this last frostbolt. If we're observing the situation and we're like, oh, if this frostbolt high rolls and it crits us, do I take that risk? Do I not take that risk? What the hell is going on? Yada, 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 right? So life looks, of course, a little bit differently than these very simple numbers of 1 in 8, 1 in 8, 1 in 8 down here. You start throwing in any kind of frost resistance, fire resist, thick obsidian breastplate into this equation, and those numbers on paper more than double. In practice, they probably easily double or more to the point where it's like 1 in 16 openers, yada. That might not be true. Maybe it'll be like 1 in 12 openers, you're forced to use a defensive trinket. Because again, you might see like, again, the moral of the story, the super, super duper TLDR takeaway from all this fucking nuance is basically when you are properly geared, hitting your HP breakpoints, wearing thick obsidian breastplate, whether you have resistances or not, but it's highly suggested that you use some fucking fire resist in this goddamn matchup. What are we doing, people? Holy shit. Did the first frostbolt crit me, yes or no? Simple as that. When this first frostbolt does not crit you, you do not have to pay attention to a goddamn thing. It'll be a cold day in hell where you need to perk up and be like, wait a minute, what do you mean that those 2 fire blasts just crit me at only 25% damage reduction? This is assuming you got like the fire resist suit, right? You're like, wait, what? What do you mean they both crit me? Okay, now I'm paying attention. Right? I'm paying attention now. Like, goddamn, this is a little bit scary. But usually you don't have to pay attention. You just don't have to pay attention. If the first the first frostbolt crits you, now you're paying attention. Right now you're perking up. You're like, oh shit. Okay. What are the fire blasts doing? If you have frost resistance, this is even a bigger indicator that you're going to need to use a defensive cooldown. It's almost a 100% guarantee that you're going to need to use a defensive cooldown if you have 50% frost resistance. It'll be far less likely that this first frostbolt will crit you, but when it happens, you're going to have to perk up and find your Whipper-Root Tuber, or find your whatever defensive insert here, right? You got to perk up for that, right? Because these fire blasts are not going to get resisted for anything. They may or may not crit, which will just make things worse. And then, of course, you have to assume that the final Frostbolt will actually crit you as well. You always have to assume the final Frostbolt will crit you. Again, it's like playing a weird little game of poker going on here as you pay attention to the cards that are coming down. What the hell else is there? But yeah, with the fire resist, it's a completely different animal. Because even if the first Frostbolt crits, you only semi have to pay attention, because that's not what that's not where you're gaining the HP from, kind of a scenario. We still have to pay attention, but it's like whatever. Damn, maybe it's too nuanced talk, and it's best to talk about it at this super simple macro level of main Frostbolt crit, yes, no, pay attention, yes, no. That's usually how it plays out. There are a bunch of other little nuances going on here, like what kind of trinkets is the mage bringing to the party? Are they bringing their mind thing trinket? That's not really, that changes the thing somewhat. Basically, their Blackwing Lair class-specific trinket increases their casting speed by like 20% or something like that, which will change the run-away, run-at-them equation, and will basically cause them to get an extra Frostbolt on you. That sounds scary, right? Really fucking scary? Like, what do you mean they get an extra Frostbolt on me? Holy shit. Until you realize that when you see that fucking trinket, just grenade them as you're running away. Just Goblin Mortar them as you're running away. Tidal Charm them as you're running away. Use a more major defensive trinket, like, I don't know, Frost Reflector, Fire Reflector. Basically, you just have to use a defensive option. It's like, oh, you use trinket to gain more damage. I use trinket to counter more damage. Cool. But we have all these gear swapping options, so it's not like I'm limited to just 2 trinkets, right? What if they start grenading you? This is a really big difference between the fire and the frost build play strategy. If you're a frost build, the grenade's always going to work on you practically. If you're a fire resist build, that grenade has a 50% chance to just whiff on you. Goblin Mortar, 50% chance, doesn't stun you. The scenario looks completely differently from there. But if they stun you, you're like, okay, maybe I'm in trouble, maybe I'm not in trouble. It depends on the RNG, blah, 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 blah. Were they smart enough to save that their trinket for a good lay on RNG that this extra damage / stun could be the difference? Fine, whatever, have my bubble. Fine, whatever, have my PvP trinket. Fine, whatever, have my major healing potion. Even something as simple as like nifty stopwatch as a trinket. You can just like, later bitch kind of a thing. You end up in this vicious cycle of what if they do this, what if you do that, with this like ocean of nuance involved. All the little RNG stuff going on behind the scenes, blah, 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 blah. All that shit cancels itself out. It cancels itself out, and the next thing you need to know is just go watch the even better Paladin vs. Mage PvP guide. Because since all that stuff just cancels itself out, because you have all these gear swapping opportunities, that's when I say in that previous video, the mage cannot kill you. This is why everything that goes into that, right? Very nuanced, very nebulous, but at the end of the day, they can't fucking kill you. They can't you. They cannot generate enough DPS or enough burst possibility to wear you down through all your defensive options over the course of like a 10-minute duel. They are going to die at the 8-minute mark. Why the fuck are they going to die at the 8-minute mark? Because you're always going to get your second bubble back around the 8-minute mark. And when you have bubble and they don't got any more ice blocks, shit starts looking really scary for the mage. All right, cool. I'm going to end the video here, and Deus Volt, boys. Little TLDR, the HP breakpoint works perfectly fine for the Elemental Shaman down here as well, even though his damage looks a little bit different in Era. All the same principles apply. You can go watch that video if you want to hear like literally just everything I just said, but like in reverse. Fire resistance is super nice. This damage of 5,800 is assuming that that he's bursting on you. If you can't survive that, usually you can survive that with your 5,200 easily off of a Whipper tuber. It's not even that big of a deal. But it depends on, did this crit you? Did that crit you? Did the grenade crit you? Was the grenade resisted? Blah, 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 blah. What's going on? Did you get a chance to try to throw a stun at this shaman? If we've got grenaded or war stomped, you didn't get a chance to. But it just basically boils down to your dumbass can just bubble this away. And then the next time this sequence of events takes place, it'll be War Stomp rather than Grenade, or Tidal Charm rather than Grenade, or Goblin Mortar rather than Grenade that comes out to fill the sequence. These are not automatically critting anymore. There's you're looking at the RNG as it comes down, but you still have plenty of defensive options. You're going to survive that, no problem. Paladin versus Shaman is completely different than Paladin versus Mage. Surviving the burst looks eerily similar, right? You're watching the RNG and you're acting accordingly. It looks stupidly similar. Thick Obsidian Breastplate is also in play. Fire Resistance is also in play. Yada, yada, yada. But it looks completely differently because they can't sheep you. And because they can't sheep you, what ends up happening is a Shaman only has enough mana to burst on you one time. And you probably saw that in the Drakova video, like how low mana he was, even though he probably started that fight pretty high mana. It costs them a third of their mana to do a burst on you, another third of then you just bubble it, so it doesn't matter. Another third of their mana to do another burst on you, which, you just insert defensive trinket, burrower shell, whipper root, healing potion, whatever the fuck else you got going on, major recombobulate array, who gives a shit. You survive that, no problem, even if the RNG didn't go for you. And now homie's only got like a third of a mana bar left to work with to try to kill you, and it's not looking good because they might not have any stuns left. Like it's ugly for them. So they basically and die, whereas the mage just has a mana for days and days and days and days. This matchup gets stupidly easy when you use things like Edward the Odd. Also, it gets stupidly easy when you do a skeleton pet summon, because the chain lightning will bounce. So it's a defensive trinket, and also it causes pushback. It ends up being a nightmare scenario for the shaman. Yada yada yada. Yada 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 yada. You can also stun shaman for 6 seconds. Yeah, and then heal off of that. Yeah. AGM completely fucks them in the ass. It's actually kind of hilarious, even though they can purge it, because you'll just pop AGM rather than bubble on their burst, and it's like, blow. I'm like, okay, I survived your burst. I'm healing to full now. And they're like, fuck, I still have bubble. Anyways, I'm ending the video here, and Deus Volt, boys.